Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Goblin Salvage Rights. My name's Robert.
And I'm Eric.
And today's episode is about vehicles.
Vehicles.
Your sails and your striders be damned.
Hang gliders and other things that rhyme.
Yes, and whirring time machines that transcend all time and space and reality, apparently, are vehicles, too.
Both with and without magical options.
Boats.
Can you imagine like the vehicle salesman in the middle of the Grand Bazaar? Just like a used vehicle salesman as a goblin. Just trying to get people to just buy his garbage and get off the lot.
This baby can fit so many goblins in here. Oh, man. But yeah, today's topic is vehicles. It's a pretty interesting category that they introduced in the Game Mastery Guide. Before we jump into the topic, though, we got two things on the menu. First, we want to thank one of our patrons.
I love thanking patrons. Which one?
Oak Stubble.
Oak Stubble.
Thank you, Oak Stubble.
Stand and be recognized.
You rock. We have a Patreon where you get to have us talk about you, and we
talk about you a lot.
Yeah, you also get to talk to us directly on a special Discord chat, and we have a monthly video that we make just for patrons. They basically get to decide what we talk about, and then we talk about it, which is pretty rad. That's the Patreon.
Yep, you guys are rather influential to us.
So. Oh yeah, it's pretty much. You pretty much dictate what we do. That's fine. I was like, wow, that's a great idea. Let's write that down. We also have Discord. Discord's pretty bumping. We've having more and more people.
I'm on it every day. I love just chatting with people, and I don't know anybody's faces really, so it's really weird for me to. I don't talk to strangers all that much. All my Discord activity is typically just like friends and people I know.
That's the strangest conversation you have all day. Yeah, awesome. And then I guess we want to talk about maybe the last game we played. I want to raise this up. I recently did my first ever half marathon, which is pretty cool. Longest I've ever run until very recently. I'm training for my first marathon in October. I'm going to be running the Portland Marathon. And then if I'm feeling not obliterated, I might be doing an ultra marathon.
What is an ultra marathon?
It's anything more than a marathon. Just basically. So a marathon is
25 miles would be an ultra marathon?
Well, my marathon is 26.2 miles.
Oh, wow.
So ultra marathon is anything more than that. Typically, they start at 30. Mm-hmm. There's like a dead zone, I guess, between 26 and 30.
I was going to say, if you take that one extra step beyond the marathon,
27 miles
does that
ultra
count?
Marathon. There's a run in Smith Rock State Park called Run the Rock. There's a
that sounds gorgeous.
Yeah, they have a 20 miler, a 30 miler, and a 50 miler. The crazy part about all of them is that they have an insane amount of vertical gain. Mm-hmm. So most marathons.
Do they send mountain lions after you if you start to lag?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You have 24 hours or you
as
get
a spectator
eaten by a mountain lion.
Just nipped.
Just nipped?
Yeah.
No, mountain lions.
Positive reinforcement.
Gotcha.
Druid reinforcement.
Yeah.
Primal reinforcement.
Beastmaster reinforcement. But yeah, so it's 30 miles and like 4,000 or 5,000 feet of gain, which is like the hard part.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, we'll see how I do. I might just cry and whimper out on the marathon. My goal is
Don't do that. You'll get eaten by a mountain lion, and I'm going to have to do this by myself going forward.
My goal is sub 5 hours for my first ever marathon, which is pretty attainable. It's like 11-minute miles. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun training. I ran 14 this morning. Mm-hmm. So yeah, feeling pretty good.
I had 3 caramels about an hour ago.
I'm not trying to flex on anyone. It's just, it's just kind of what I'm into. I go through these waves of obsession. I like to call it my obsession engine. Mm-hmm. It just gets revved up and I get super into something for sometimes a couple years at a time. I've been rock climbing for the past 8 or 9 years, and that's kind of started to fade a little bit. I'm going to stay a rock climber for a very long time, but running has kind of taken up my fascination recently.
Well, if you're going to obsess, it's better that than crack cocaine or something.
Yeah. It's the closest thing I've ever come to that is Warhammer and Magic. And damn, those are close.
The closest you've ever come to crack cocaine is Warhammer and Magic.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
There's a meme in there somewhere.
Yeah. So let's talk about our most recent games.
Recent games. What kind of games do I run?
You did Edgewatch.
Did I?
We had a giant.
I did.
We had a giant boat crash into a bank.
Yeah. There's a Macy's Day Parade kind of a situation, and there were judges with notable celebrants and gubernatorial people just sitting up on stage, being guarded and judging the floats as they came by. And we discovered at some point that there was going to be a raid on the bank, and it was going to be one of the floats. So we're sitting around on the bank, just watching the floats go by, and eventually this large pirate ship.
It's so on the nose.
It really was.
I fucking kind of hated it, but loved it. It's so like there was like a dancing fucking clown that was
just
like
dancing up in the crow's nest with all of his clown makeup on and his little eye patch. It was as written in the book, and I spent a week before that session going, I should change this. There's a million floats I can come up with all kinds of cool Galarian lore attached to it.
Yep.
But I stuck with the pirate ship.
You went with the pirate ship?
Because it was just, not only was it on the nose, but like it was on the nose, and I didn't linger on the description long enough for it to just lag.
Yeah.
And just crash that fucker right into the bank.
So is there a term in writing where something is so on the nose the characters disbelieve that could be an option because it's too obvious? Is there a term for that?
That's getting pretty meta.
Kind of like the opposite of red
when
herring?
people are too on the nose, they tend to say it's trite.
Trite. Okay, gotcha. I don't feel like that doesn't hit the note I'm looking for, but I don't know.
Yeah. The cliche triteness of the whole thing was something that I thought I needed to get rid of.
Yeah,
because I like to have my games have more meat on the bone, and this is just like pure fat. Just pure unmarbled fucking fat.
I almost fireballed like a crowd of innocent people. It's basically like they crashed their boat into the side of this bank.
I'm happy you showed restraint, and the crowd did too.
I've been holding on to that fireball for so long. I haven't gotten to use it at all.
Yeah. I love that. And in a cops and robbers game, when one of the cops has a fireball, you gotta be careful where you throw that thing.
Yeah, I think I'm probably just gonna swap fireball out for something else.
Yeah, so it was really cool. I mean, how do you hide a bank heist from a many thousand plus crowd hanging out around the bank? And what happened was this pirate ship ended up crashing into the bank, looked like an accident, and the sails kind of just like billowed around and unfurled. And the sails were kind of concealing all the pirates, like slipping underneath through the hole in the bank wall that they made. And I can't say too much about it, because you guys aren't finished with the scene. I know some of you are watching out there. But the what do you call it? The clown is actually a strong man. So the idea was crash into the side of the building, and if you don't make the hole you're looking for, then he will get in there and just like pull the bars by the window, and we can slip through one-on-one. Yeah. But due to the magic of high die rolls, which I can do when I'm not a player.
Yep.
We basically staged a bunch of bad NPCs in the bank now. So you guys were mostly inside, with a couple of you on top of the bank watching the float come in.
Yep.
And everybody else was inside waiting for the shenanigans to happen. And shenanigans did happen,
And are happening.
Yeah, and are happening. We didn't finish it. I fully expected that to be a one-session thing.
Really?
Yeah, I'm dumb that way.
I know. I just like it's.
You think by now I would have learned.
I spent like an hour drawing the map.
Yeah.
While we were doing
like the chapter in the book is maybe 3 pages long.
Wow.
Where the other chapters are all like, I don't know, 15, 20 pages sometimes.
Nuts.
It's super, super short.
That's nuts.
I just underestimated how long it would be. But yeah, it's the bank heist. I mean, I've been teasing you guys with this freaking bank heist for like 6 months now in real world time.
Absolutely.
So it's really satisfying to have laid down all the all the seeds that I planted for the last 6 months. You guys are like starting to get into the thick of the karate chop action part.
Totally.
This part of the plot.
Oh yeah.
And one of you guys, I'm hoping to wow the hell out of you by the end of this next session. And I will not name which player it is.
I wonder.
But there's going to be some NPC shenanigans going on. So I'm super excited about it, and I hope I pull it off. You're doing Kingmaker these days. I know because I'm there.
Yep.
And what was the last Kingmaker experience you ran
Last Kingmaker, you finished the big event. We basically, the previous session before that, you defeated the BBEG of level 1, basically, where the manor gets besieged. And then we walked through the RP of that, kind of tying itself up. And then
delicious.
We did some purchasing of things. You guys ended up with like a lot of money.
Less delicious.
For some people, other players actually really enjoyed that.
Buying stuff is boring for me. I just want to like write it and move on. but I know people love it. So
I'm a
that's
kid in a
good.
candy shop when it comes to buying stuff. I
Totally.
love looking through books and looking on Pathfinder and Archives and Nethies and being like, what can
So
I
like
spend
the
my money on?
60-hour game of Diablo for you was like 120 just so you can go to the market.
Oh yeah, I fucking love the market. Economist. But and then we set off and we got to the Oleg's trading post.
That was exciting. Why was that exciting, Robert?
Well, because there was an attack on Oleg's trading post that you learned about immediately.
Yeah,
and
it wasn't a surprise attack. We got to get ready for it, and plan and stage, and be really excited with how clever we were as players.
And then you guys fucking demolished them.
Destroyed
that scene,
and it felt so good.
One shot, and I was like, oh, okay, well. Combat's over.
And these are legit rolls, right? Was that scene that we destroyed? Was that supposed to be a moderate encounter or a severe encounter, or was it supposed to be like a trivial? Or
that was
encounter?
moderate. See,
it was a moderate.
What actually happened was you weren't supposed to level to level 2.
Okay, I feel less good about it now.
But I felt that you guys. That was like I've been and we're going to do an episode on this, milestone leveling versus experience leveling.
Sure.
I want to wait until I get a little further in our games that I'm running experience leveling, because I'm running experience leveling for Kingmaker.
I haven't played that in ages.
Yeah. My goal is to make Kingmaker as by the book as possible.
Sure.
And that means experience leveling. And I didn't realize you weren't supposed to level until I already told you guys you should level, because I was reading in the book and it was like, your players may or may not be second level by now. And I'm like,
and some things cannot be unsaid.
It honestly doesn't matter. Like, it's fucking level 2. Like, I would rather level my players up early and then slow it down later, because so that
100%.
I can get you out of that, like, that feels bad, your character died range, you know? Like when I
never leave that range.
When my bard died to the fucking Jellicoe or whatever, the demons or whatever in that one game. So yeah, level 2, and honestly, you guys just rolled amazing, and they're like all -1 opponents and stuff like that. So
it was really satisfying as a player to roll into, because we had staged the entire trading post area so that when the bad guys would move around, we could trigger our actions. It was almost like we were all holding an action, waiting for the NPCs to be, in the X marks the spot on the map. And once that happened, I felt like we made good use of our action economy and did some cinematic things. Like we took a wheelbarrow of some sort, like a wagon, and then made it
which
vertical.
Is one of the vehicles we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And we didn't use the vehicle as it's written in the book. It was basically just a prop that we could light on fire and keep them from escaping. But it was cool stuff like hiding, stealthing, athletics check on the wagon to tip it that way. We didn't get a chance to throw the flame on it to light it up.
Thank Christ.
Because I really wanted to use my action economy in a different way. So there were some chewy action selection choices for me specifically, and I'm sure everybody else felt the same way.
So Eric, I just want to point out that in a previous game that you've ran, your combat went very south very quickly. And you seemed pretty upset about it.
I vaguely remember that.
And I was trying to
this gray hair right here.
Yeah.
That was a result of that game.
Okay. I was trying to
I've named it Robert.
Show grace during during this combat about like we're completely getting off topic at this point, but there's like this thing that happens in a lot of DMs' minds where your monsters get killed much more quickly than you expect them to.
Sure.
And for some reason, us DMs get like butthurt about it, and it happens to all of us.
Yeah, it's even worse with our NPCs.
Exactly, and we're like, and my baby, and I feel like we get adversarial sometimes with our players about it, and it's like at the end of the day, the players are the heroes, and they're supposed to kill the bad guys.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's infuriating that you do, I'm going to probably steal. Hopefully, well, we'll see how the book runs it, but is your BBGs always get away?
You've said that a couple of times, and I'm not saying you're wrong, because it clearly has happened a few times.
It's happened every single time I've ever played in a game with you.
Okay,
every single time.
I know in the language in a lot of these adventures, it'll say things like, if this NPC is reduced to X number of hit points, they'll give up, they'll surrender, or they'll run away, or they will fight to the death. There are specific end of combat, if you will, instructions that they sort of suggest for the GMs, and I tend to run with those. But I also like to have my NPCs want to live, you know?
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It definitely makes sense. Like from a
when they know they're outclassed because they continue to fail every single action that they try to do for multiple rounds. Sooner or later, they just GTF up.
From a verisimilitude perspective, it makes complete sense.
That is the only perspective that matters.
From a game perspective, it's infuriating.
I believe it. I've experienced it on both sides of the tables, and you're absolutely valid on that.
Infuriating in a fun
you're going to
way.
steal it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't wait.
We'll see. We'll see. I might just run it by the book, and I won't. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah. So yeah, those were our games we covered. Let's jump into the topic for today.
All right.
Vehicles.
What are we here for? Vehicles?
Vehicles are interesting.
I love them.
One of the things that I found, one of the things that kept coming back to me is that vehicles got introduced in the GMG with basic things like the wagon, but some more incredible items like the steam giant. I thought the glider was pretty technologically advanced when we look at like the history of technology. That's a fairly advanced technology. And of course, like the fucking airship. But not a lot of these vehicles are magical in any stretch of the imagination.
From the core book.
From the core, well, from the GMG, yeah. And then
GMG, yeah, of course.
And then when I look at the Guns and Gears vehicles, there's a few magical ones in there, but they're all
there's a lot of clockwork type stuff.
Yeah,
because the Guns and Gears is definitely more of a steampunky kind of
absolutely
a West punk.
I feel like there's certain genres of books that they're going to be coming out with in the future that will have more magical vehicles to them, hopefully. Because what interests me most about, and you know, I have a preference against Guns and Gears in my fantasy settings.
You have made that noted once or twice.
Yeah. But what I'm looking forward to in the future is more magical vehicles. Like I
was just thinking, I was looking around for your copy of Secrets of Magic. Were there any vehicles in Secrets of Magic? I don't remember seeing it.
No, I'm pretty sure there's not.
Yeah, I think that might have been a missed opportunity. I think the Book of the Dead, Secrets of Magic, Guns and Gears, Dark Archives, they should all have a small smattering of vehicles to throw in there.
Yeah.
For reasons I'm going to get into as we go through our list.
Okay, cool. So we didn't really talk to each other about the making of our notes. So what do you have on the top of yours?
Well, the top of mine, I want to talk about why vehicles, I believe, have a permanent place in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Pathfinder 2nd Edition is at its heart a tactical combat game. It's a grid-based combat game with the 3-action economy, and you move squares, and you have reach. You don't have reach. You have templates for spells. It's very geometric and tactical. That's what it is at its core. So what do vehicles add to that? If we're talking about a tactical base with a 3-action economy, vehicles like familiars, like anything with the minion trait, like animal companions, steeds, they mess around with your action economy. You go from 3 to 4 in some instances. You can mess around with what you can do at ranges based on where your significant other companion is floating around the battlefield. So I feel like vehicles are yet another expression of the 3-action economy in a way that animal companions are not.
Wow.
In a way that an actual player character is not. So say like a first level fighter, they have a 3-action economy that you can track from combat to combat to combat.
Yep.
When you throw an animal companion in there, it broadens the palette, the scope of the different combinations of actions you can do. And if you throw a vehicle in there, not only are you broadening the options that a single player can do, but an entire adventuring party. It enhances your tactical appreciation of the game. And nothing that I've seen so far in Pathfinder can replace a vehicle in what it does. It owns its own little space within the many options you can use as a PF2 player in GM.
I am thoroughly impressed by that observation, especially coming from you. It feels like the kind of observation that I should have made. I'm
really glad you let me lead with that because I thought you were going to.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you came up with that.
And it doesn't matter whether these are magical or not magical or occultish or infernal, kind of vehicles. If we're talking about like just a chariot, like a Greek chariot race, around the hippodrome or
mhm,
something like
mhm.
that has a wide variety of tactical 3-action economy options you can do. And so does the apparatus of Qualish, or whatever the hell they're calling it in this edition, because they can't use that name.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's magical or not, you still have a ton of options that you can do. So I'm super excited to get into this, because honestly, before we started talking about this video, I didn't give a shit about vehicles.
Yeah.
I just didn't. I kind of hand waved so much of it and just treated it like another prop on the stage. But now that I've gone through these rules, it's sort of a mini game within the game.
Absolutely.
So like a player
mini
character
game within
is
the game is a good way to put it.
and a familiar is kind of a mini game.
Mm-hmm.
Animal companion's a mini game. You start getting into vehicles, and it's a shared mini game. That's something you don't get with familiars and animal companions or things with the minion trait. So that's vehicles have their own place, and if you took it out, it would be empty. Nothing else would take its place. So I'd like to talk about more examples as we go through the episode on why I think that's what gets me hot about vehicles.
Gets me hot about vehicles.
So that was my rambling. What do you got?
I was really impressed by the rules that they set forth about vehicles. In my mind, vehicles have always been kind of this, they really only fit in certain settings. Like if there's only a cart and a horse, you really don't need too many rules about vehicles. But the second you get into this high fantasy setting that Pathfinder is, vehicles become more and more important to have rules.
And like
for.
other settings like Eberron, even Dragonlance to a certain extent.
Oh God, yeah.
But
I mean,
certainly
like Eberron
Pathfinder.
especially, like the Guns and Gears really covered a lot of things that Eberron needs to exist.
Which is really cool for those of you hopping over from that other place to Pathfinder.
Yeah,
you can bring your Eberron love with you.
Yeah, I think out of all of the popular TTRPGs that exist right now, I would argue that Pathfinder is actually more equipped to handle Eberron than 5th edition is right now.
Yeah, this will be a very long video if you let me go into that. But yes,
okay.
100% what you said.
Yeah. I know. I just think it's kind
in
of
a more satisfying way, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely, especially with these vehicle rules. So let's kind of chew on these rules real quick. Effectively, the way this works is that the vehicle has facing. So vehicles have dimensions. They have width, they have depth, and they have height. And they have a angle of movement as they go.
Sure.
Some vehicles are more maneuverable than others and or more sluggish than others. There's literally a term, I think it's called sluggish. Mm-hmm. Is like a thing that they have that makes them
like
turn.
A bold term that has an effect attached
exactly,
to it.
Exactly.
So I'm picturing like Warhammer. Different machines that do different angles and speeds.
The more I read into this, the more it reminded me of like older editions of Warhammer that had those kinds of rules. In modern Warhammer, planes, like flying aircraft, still have rules about angling where you can't turn more than 45 degrees in your movement and stuff like that. Yeah. So I think I wrote down some quick notes here. I think I wrote down facing matters, which is important. A lot of DMs kind of forget this, I think, but there is no facing in Pathfinder 2nd edition.
Right. You have your player character for anything with the minion trait for your familiar.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter which direction they're facing. Mm-hmm. They can change on a dime and go whichever way they want. So
and their eyes are in all directions at once, effectively.
Yeah. And in this, just to put a term on that, just to throw that in there, vehicles are objects. Mm-hmm. That's what they are. Yes. So they're called vehicles, but the actual, I don't even think it's a tag, but the designation, they are objects, and objects can only move forward in terms of vehicles. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and do your thing.
I was going to, that's a great jumping off point. So facing matters. If a vehicle is going in a certain direction, it has direction. And it has a facing. So from that facing, that's called a heading. And most vehicles can only move 90 degrees for every vehicle length they've moved. So if you have a cart that's 10 feet long, for every 10 feet it moves, it can move 90 degrees. And other things, other vehicles that are sluggish, for instance, have worse turning
So if
radius.
you have like a 100-foot long ship out in the ocean, it's got to move 100 feet before it can start going left or right.
Exactly.
And it can't go backwards.
And
unless it
can't go
unless it
backwards.
specifically says otherwise.
Exactly. You have to actually take an action to stop the vehicle and then go in that direction.
Take an
if it
action
allows.
to stop a vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay.
That gets into the rules of vehicles and how they actually operate.
Sure.
But yeah, actually, if we look at the galley, that's a really good example of how these vehicles are supposed to work. The galley has maneuverable.
What page are you on?
We're on page 178 of the.
So it's a vehicle level 10. It looks
swim
like
speed.
And it's a gargantuan size.
Yeah, it goes 30 feet. Oh, sailing ship is, I think, what I was looking at. Yeah, sailing ship is what I was thinking of. Sailing ship, vehicle 9. It has the sluggish capability. So this vehicle must move twice its length for each 90-degree turn it makes. And its length is like what? 20 feet, 75 feet long. So it has to move 150 feet before it can begin to turn.
Yeah.
And this really gets into the heart of what's really important to me is most certain settings, certain genres of adventures live and die by the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when it comes to boats,
sure,
Skulls and Shackles.
Oh yeah,
that
pirates.
whole pirates.
That's the
that whole
easiest example.
or like naval examples. Those kinds of things. They require vehicle rules to really live out the whole breadth of their gameplay experience.
Mm-hmm.
Another great example of that is Dark Sun. Actually, it's the thing that kept coming back to my mind. Dark Sun is one of those settings that I've always wanted to go back to because I have such fond memories of it as a kid. Mm-hmm. And in Dark Sun, they have vehicles exactly that skim across the sand,
mm-hmm.
and I just loved that as a kid.
Yeah, little sand skimmers made of bone.
Exactly. So that's another great example of vehicles are required for the setting to make sense.
Yeah, I think I really like that you went there because I was going to go there later. I feel like vehicles are an extension of the setting.
Mm-hmm.
So in a Venn diagram of character and setting, when they overlap, you get a vehicle, I feel. Go ahead and continue talking about that because we're about to get to my last 25% of my notes already. We're jumping to the good stuff.
Yeah, I know. So to drive a vehicle, you basically need to take an action. And that action is the drive action, believe it or not. I know it's hard to understand. But what I found was interesting about it is the propulsion type. It makes a lot of sense when you think about it, but the propulsion type is what designates the skill required to roll the check to do the thing.
Sure. So if you're piloting a wind-driven craft, you'll have a specific skill that you're rolling against. Nature in this case.
Yep. I have them all written down. I'll just blow through them real quick. For alchemically derived things like a combustion engine, you actually roll a crafting check.
That makes sense to me.
I know, but it's kind of funny. Like in our real lives, we all drive combustion vehicles. And if we were to apply the context of Pathfinder 2nd Edition to our real lives, we're all rolling crafting checks when we drive our cars every day. Some
people better than others.
Some people, yeah. Luckily, we live in Oregon and it's very safe driving here. For a magical vehicle, okay, you drive like a bat out of hell. All right, Mr. California.
I'm a professional driver. I have strong opinions about this.
Okay, all right. You're also from California.
Oregonian drivers need to stop giving away the right of way.
All right,
it causes accidents.
We're very polite here. So magical, you just use the appropriate magical skill to route, normally if
it's primal, then
it defaults
nature.
To the magic one. What's the magic one? The wizard one. Fucking arcane. Yeah, arcane. It defaults to arcane for most vehicles, but there could also be like a primal vehicle. There could be a celestial vehicle. Imagine like a Valhalla boat comes down. You know what I mean? That you could use your religion check to pilot it. Occult. What would an occult vehicle look like?
Some sort of like aberration sled of some sort is what I'm picturing.
Yeah, or like the Baba Yaga. I think it's Baba Yaga. I don't know. The
flying cauldron.
No,
thing?
The cauldron.
Or the house on the chicken legs.
That's an actual. But I was thinking the house on the chicken legs.
Yeah.
But the cauldron is an actual item in the game. I just read it on Archives and Ethies like a minute ago.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. you could always use piloting lore
Mhm.
instead of any of these skills. And the check, because it's a lore, the DC is often a little bit lower, like 2 lower than what the normal check would be. DC would be. The DC, just to not get too tangenty, the DC is generally a check of the level of the item. So if the item is, if it's a Strider, it's a level 7 item, you just find the typical DC for a level 7 thing, and that's the piloting DC generally. For pulled vehicles, you
like
generally
a dog sled or a horse-drawn carriage.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
You generally use nature, or if they're being pulled by sentient creatures, you use diplomacy or intimidation.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, like, I've never played a game where I was having a sled pulled by sentient creatures.
Yeah, I'm thinking in terms of like the rich bastards in Egypt, where they were in their palanquins, and the servants would have them hoisted on the shoulders, and they would go. Yeah. And you can diplomance them to go faster,
absolutely.
or you can crack the whip.
Road is diplomacy or intimidation, which again gets back to a better example, I think, of a human or a sentient being powered ship. That makes a lot of sense. If you've ever been in a boat crew, you know that the driver of the boat crew needs to the rowers have to have a lot of respect for them in order to trust them to like and maneuver themselves on the water. I see them all the time actually when I go running over the bridges in Portland. There's a huge couple groups
the dragon boats.
No, just like the rowing boats. Those super long, thin rowing boats. They have a bunch of like
college rowing team kind of boats.
Yeah. They have like, but they're like,
I haven't seen a lot of those.
They're like 20 people long.
Yeah.
And they're like, they're awesome. They look like a lot of fun. Something I've always wanted to try. And then we got back to wind. Wind is a nature tech. While Eric was talking earlier, I one thing I just realized I never look up while doing research for this episode was the archetype that relates to.
I completely spaced that too.
Yeah, so it's called the trick driver, and what it allows you to do. Express driver is the dedication feat. No, the dedication feat is the dedication feat. It allows you to get piloting lore, and it allows you to use dexterity in place of intelligence when attempting a piloting lore check. And then you become expert automatically and master and legendary automatically later on in your levels. And of course, there's a bunch of cool feats that allow you to do fun things with the DCs.
So there's an archetype out there that's specifically for players who want to interact with vehicles.
Yeah, I think there actually is like maybe 2 or 3, if I remember correctly.
That's kind of cool because you can wrap entire stories around vehicles and the people who pilot them.
Pirates are a great example of it, but you can take that and extrapolate it outwards. What if you have an underwater pirating adventure where you have underwater ships?
Sure.
Or not to step on the
I'm
toes.
thinking like a submarine from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Absolutely. I just learned recently that the name 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea does not reference the depth of the submarine. Rather, it references the distance it traveled while under the sea. Fucking news to me. It's not like I ever read the book. But yeah, that's kind of the heart and soul of the system. You roll a check to see if you can operate it, and then there's a list of actions you can take.
Let's take a minute to talk about those actions because when you're in encounter mode, as opposed to
changes a lot of things.
Yeah. Exploration mode, you have a 3-action economy. And if I saw this right, there are about 5 things you can do when you're in this vehicle. You can drive
6.
as an action. You can board the vehicle as an action. You can run something over as an action. If you want to stop the vehicle, that's an action. You can't just let go and then it stops.
There's 5.
You have to actively make it stop as an action. You can take control of the vehicle as an action. What's the 6th one I'm missing?
I lied. I wrote trick driver down as a note in between them, and then I counted them randomly.
So if you're in encounter mode and there's a let's call it a horse carriage chase. You're, trying to get the gold from Sweetwater to Stillwater, and you're on the Badlands, and there's 10 miles of Badlands, and the robbers come up behind you, and they're trying to take your gold out of your carriage. You attack, you shoot, you try to intimidate, you glare, you use whatever feats you have. You do all the stuff you would normally do in your 3-action economy from round to round to round in combat. But you got to operate this thing too. And that takes time, that takes actions. And that's a mini game within the big game.
Exactly. So what's interesting is when the vehicle is being controlled by someone, they've actively rolled a check and have not critically failed, I believe. The vehicle is considered to be under control, and you only get a -2 circumstance bonus to attack other people. If it's uncontrolled, you get a -4 circumstance bonus.
And that sucks.
That's huge.
For all you non-fighters
huge
out there.
Yeah, that's huge. I found that really, really fascinating.
I love how punishing it is.
It's super
because
punishing.
it brings us back to just how difficult it is to have a sword fight on a carriage moving at 50 miles an hour.
And a lot of times they balance each other out because both people are probably on the thing and they're both taking -2s. So really both parties are probably just missing more, which I think is appropriate to the cinematic experience.
Yeah, I love it. And just being able to go through those 5 different actions as you're also trying to cast spells, as you're trying to hide, take cover, whatever, reload. It's a cool little mini game. And that's what I keep coming back to there. One thing I really liked about vehicles, and I didn't realize how much I liked about it until I finished reading this and got ready for this episode, is I hate conversations about alignment. We know this, but I also hate conversations about bulk. Player characters carry way too much shit.
Yeah.
And I can't stand how much crap people have on their character sheet. It doesn't make sense. And in the old days, everybody had a portable hole and they just kind of hand waved it as a result.
We still have portable holes.
We do, but they're not as prevalent as they used to be, at least in my closed experience.
Our experience, yeah.
But with these vehicles, you get a lot of bulk you can throw on here, and I can start suspending disbelief at that point. If you've got a draft horse, that's 100 bulk.
That's crazy to me. That is the 100 bulk draft horse is crazy to me. Yeah,
and if you have like a carriage that's being pulled by 6 of those, that's 600 bulk.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden, I can start kind of going with it. But nothing pisses me off. Well, I just hate it when a player chimes up and says, "Hey, do you want this ballista?"
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, wait, you were asking about this catapult?
Yeah.
Like, you realize that takes up space, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you get like an airship, and you can get 1,000 plus bulk divided by 10 if you're in the air, blah, blah, blah. There's certain bulk restrictions based on whether you're like a land vehicle or if you're up in the air.
Or a sea vehicle.
Or a sea vehicle. So all of that stuff is accounted for in the subsystem in a way that doesn't take a ton of time. You don't have to do vast mathematical computations to get your answers as to whether or not you can move at base speed or keep going. So I think bulk is an important part of the vehicle conversation because it legitimizes all the crap all you bastards out there in Goblin Land have on your character sheets.
I feel like maybe we should do an entire episode dedicated to bulk, or just talking about how carrying capacity can affect the verisimilitude of a game.
Yeah, as well as the actual numbers.
Do you goblins want to see that in an episode? Let us know in the comments.
Tell us, and we'll do it.
Yeah, no, seriously.
We'll do it faster if you tell us on Discord.
Yeah, or in the comments. Both is good. Please comment and like the video.
So anyway, I dig the 5 different actions and the mini game it creates. I dig how it solves my bulk problem. I love that. I love that vehicles are treated as objects because it helps me understand the mini game in a way that's different from minions and things with the minion trait. And being able to know what direction you're facing allows you to sort of have a limited prescience into future rounds of combat. So you can plan for things in a way that's a lot harder to do if it's just your character or your character and a wolf.
What I love is you can run things over too.
Let's talk about that.
I just want to run people over.
Can you do damage with the vehicle?
Yeah, you literally use the run over action. It's 3 actions.
That's probably what everybody tuned in for.
Absolutely. You effectively use 3 actions to move. And
all of your actions.
If you impact someone, they take damage. They get a reflex save for half or blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
But you and everything inside also takes damage, which is kind of crazy.
That is awesome. I love that.
But because vehicles have hardness, Your vehicle doesn't obviously take as much damage as you do.
Sure. So like your vehicle is a lot like a shield or a door in that
Yes.
respect, right?
Absolutely.
So you can't just do direct damage. You have to go through a hardness value like you would a steel door or a gold door or a lead door or a wood door.
Yeah, a whole episode on item traits and hardness and stuff would be interesting too.
That would be useful for me as a GM because
Yeah.
I'm still a little loosey-goosey on that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm very torn about the fact that they in first edition, we had this whole subsystem for sundering. You would make a sunder check. And one of my favorite pet builds of first edition was a wrecker barbarian paired with the broken oracle, where basically the two abilities combined in a way that made it really stupid easy to break things. And then you pile on all the old Sunder rules, and it was a lot of munchkin-y fun. Munchkin fun ensued.
Yeah. First edition was broken.
I loved it. But what I think is kind of odd is like the Sunder rules don't have a space in the core rule book. They don't have a space in the book. And I think they definitely need summing up in a way, because they're one of those corner case rules in Pathfinder that just need their own chapter, but never got one, I feel like. Anyway, writing it down. So what's next on your list to talk about vehicles?
Just to sum up, the thing I think that are important about vehicles are you get 5 actions. You can drive, board, run over, stop, take control. Nice and simple.
Yep.
You have bulk, lack of restrictions. Just throw all your crap on it, right?
Yeah.
You have certain movement restrictions. Like you were saying, facing is critically important forward. So that means when you're looking at your battle mat, you've got you can see a couple of rounds into the future on your battle mat. Collision damage is important because while you are hurting people outside the vehicle, you are also hurting people inside the vehicle. So you can't just ram things all day.
To death.
Unless you have a specific vehicle that has a bit of text that says ramming ability. You know, everybody inside takes half damage instead of full damage, whatever.
It's like designed for that thing.
Exactly.
And
all
that
these
adds a lot of variety, which I really like.
Yeah. And there's like dozens of vehicles in here, and they all have like a thing they can do that other vehicles can't. And sometimes it's that. I'm thinking of like the ancient Greek triremes out on the water where they're designed to ram other ships.
Yes.
I didn't see that in here, but you better believe it's buildable.
Yeah, there's definitely design space for that kind of thing.
Yeah. The thing that you started saying in the beginning, what kind of vehicles are there? Well, there's alchemical vehicles. There are magical vehicles. There are vehicles that are pulled. There are vehicles you can row. There are vehicles that are powered by wind.
So many books.
There are clockwork vehicles. There are electrical vehicles. And these are all the categories of vehicles. So when you look through the Guns and Gears, the Grand Bazaar, and maybe even an adventure in an AP path that we just haven't noticed yet, you'll find all of the vehicles are in one of those broad categories. So if you're looking to build a vehicle or reskin a vehicle, maybe you watched Matrix last week and you want to do one of those cool little insectoid hover ships that can only house like 3 people inside, and they've got these weird little magnet things going on. That's literally in this book. I found it today.
It's pretty rad.
You can totally reskin sci-fi stuff into a steampunk context or a magical context.
Or something in between.
Sure.
You know, that's what I love about settings like the one that Aspen loves that we just talked about. Fucking
Eberron.
Eberron, especially when it came out, it carved this really interesting niche in a fantasy world. It did a bit of world building, and I'm a huge fan of world building. That kind of created a space for not steampunk to exist, but something else, some magic punk, some kind of thing like that. And you know, I know I keep coming back to this, but these vehicles are really indicative of making settings like that come alive. What I thought was really interesting about this is the electrical magic comes from Ustalov within the setting of Pathfinder.
Right.
That magic comes from Ustalov. And I
didn't catch that part.
It never really made any sense to me. The gears, the guns and gears is separated into 2 sections, the gears and the guns. And a lot of that electrical magic comes from Ustalov. And it makes...
Frankenstein, of course.
Frankenstein, the connection to Frankenstein.
It's all coming into place.
I thought that was really neat. And that's a part of fantasy horror that you've never really... The electricity stops with Frankenstein most of the time. I've never seen it. I've never seen it expanded.
Do you remember that
Except in,
Warhammer
like-
contraption that the Skavens had, the Doom Wheel?
Yes.
That was completely powered by Clan Scryer's ability to harness electricity
Yes.
and warp.
Yes. That's a great example of it too.
And it's super gothic and totally appropriate for Ustalov.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now that you brought up Warhammer, one of the interesting things is about vehicles, the vehicle rules is the BT value. I think I actually wrote a note about this. So the BT value is the broken threshold, essentially broken threshold.
Okay.
And basically once, normally it's about half HP. So once, and this is how items work generally, is once they get about half HP, they're considered broken. They have diminished ability.
So if I have a magic helicopter that has 60 hit points, as soon as I hit 30, that crosses the BT threshold and something happens?
It gets -2 to pretty much everything. It's AC, it's saves, collision DC, but more importantly, it's piloting DC increases by 5.
It gets harder,
which is insane.
That 5 is no joke.
5 is
so your vehicle
crazy. It's
isn't
halfway to a critical failure.
incapacitated; it's just broken, and you're kind of You're like, hold on, everybody.
Imagine you've got a glider and the guy shoots holes in your glider. Like the glider's not going to completely stop working, but it's going to be diminished in its capability.
Your time is limited at that point.
Exactly.
You're going to be failing a lot of checks.
If you're flying a plane these days and it's got 2 jet engines, one of the engines blows up, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You
still have hero
thrust.
points.
Yeah, you still have thrust, but you got to land the sucker now.
I dig that.
And that's a big cinematic moment, in my opinion.
Oh, totally.
That you as a DM,
it's almost scripted.
You as a DM should really focus on that broken moment. That moment when it crosses that threshold is like oh shit, the stakes just got drastically increased. You know what I mean? That's like the big oh fuck moment.
Does your brain do anything when you think about? I'm going back to that episode we did on relics, and we talked about should everybody have their own relic, or can one person have a relic and nobody else has one? Maybe there's a group relic. What do you think about individual player characters around the table, each one having their own vehicle? Everybody has a shared vehicle that they jump into. Maybe 2 people have one vehicle, and your party of 4 has 2 vehicles, and you have to decide who's in which. It seems like there's room to play there.
Absolutely. I think, again, it just depends so heavily on the theme of the adventure. If you're playing a dungeon crawl, ain't no way there's going to be a vehicle subtext in a dungeon crawl just because the space doesn't make any sense.
See, I thought the same thing, and then I noticed there was like this drill on the front of a digger where you can, dig and you have underground movement.
Yeah, absolutely.
And why wouldn't you take that to a dungeon with you? Just poke in through the walls and enter.
So that's like that's kind of next.
It's a DM nightmare, but
I've actually done it in many games that like dig around the problem.
It's like the mole men from Final Fantastic Four.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, like that's a really cool option to solve a creative problem. But in your typical dungeon delver, you don't normally run into that kind of vehicles are large and cumbersome, and they generally require wide open spaces to maneuver in.
Maybe a beholder dungeon. Oh wait, we can't use that word anymore.
Oh yeah, they're right. They got banned.
Eye tyrant.
Yeah, eye tyrant. Oh my gosh. But yeah, like
multiple
really,
people to a vehicle, one for everybody. Everybody gets one.
Well, some DMs love splitting their parties, and others don't, because they're worried about TPK. And we should talk about Gabby's game, the
shitty dwarves in the desert.
Dwarves in the desert, because vehicles are a huge part of that, a huge part of splitting the party, a huge part of just all that stuff. So a long time ago, our friend Gabby ran a multi-session game where it was basically like Mad Max in the desert. We were a family of dwarves, and one of the players was playing an inventor.
It felt more like the Beverly Hillbillies. But
yeah, it was. It was definitely Beverly Hillbillies. And one of the players had the Clunker Junker, which was fantastic. I now, after actually sitting down and reading the stats for the Clunker Junker, I now understand why Alex was so in love.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's on page 93 of Guns and Gears if you're following along.
Absolutely. It's just so insane.
It's uncommon, medium size, and it's a vehicle 1. So it's
first level vehicle. Yeah.
You get it really early on. It costs $30.
And this is one of those things where like you could build a character around it because it's just small enough to take into most dungeons and be kind of like okay, I guess. There's no squeezing this anywhere, but it's 10 feet long and 5 feet wide and 5 feet tall.
High, right?
So I guess if if you're in a Hall of Giants, you can definitely ride around in the Hall of Giants and stuff like that. But if it ever gets a little too small for the vehicle, you're just done. There's no squeezing a vehicle between two rocks.
I love the stat blocks that they have for all the vehicles here. Like for every single one of these, it's super easy to read and you can just get all your information at a glance.
Yeah.
You have the name of it, you've got the tags, the rarity of it, the size of it, so on and so forth. You've got what level you should be able to access it all, a brief description, how much it costs, the space it takes up on the grid, what the number of the crew is, 1 pilot, 1 passenger, the piloting check skills you can use for that specific one. It has armor class, fortitude save, hardness value, hit points, immunity, speed, collision damage, special abilities like fall apart, smog, volatile flamethrower, idiosyncratic things that are only for that specific thing. And the way the stat blocks are laid out are just like the monsters in the bestiary.
Yep.
When you have a question like, where are the hit points? Because it's on every other
same spot
vehicle. It's on the same spot everywhere.
Every time.
So I just love how they just kept it. It's super smooth and elegant.
Yeah, they're definitely doing a really good job streamlining all of the stat blocks, but not only just the stat blocks, the informational presentation is becoming so consistent all the time.
Yeah, I was never so appreciative of bold text as I was when I picked up this book.
Yeah, because it matters. It really does matter. And it draws your eye intentionally to important things like passengers. Yeah. And this gets into your question about splitting the party or like having multiple vehicles and stuff like that. It's really dependent on the style of the game and the exploratory nature of the game. I think with the Rage of Elements coming out soon, we're going to be seeing a lot more interplanetary, interrealm adventuring. There's a couple vehicles in this book.
We call it planar shit.
Planar shit, yeah. That it's going to give a lot of these vehicles more credence, like the drill.
We get to go Spelljammer on this.
Yeah, like Earth.
God, all the things I can't say anymore.
Earth plane with a drill.
With a digger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or like airplane with a skyship, or water plane with a submarine. Sure. Fire plane, you're just fucked. But yeah, I think vehicles kind of, the more I think about it, the more I realize that vehicles kind of allow us to stretch our verisimilitude to the point where things can begin to make sense in extreme environments, like underwater, like the elemental plane of Earth, so that we're not just like slapping the it's magic label on it.
Yeah, and it also helps you get a little bit of that Star Trek vibe, if that's what you're looking for in a fantasy setting.
Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica, Matrix. I keep bringing that one up.
Not to step on Starfinder's toes or anything like that.
Sure, yeah.
But,
But if you want to like bring a little bit of that sci-fi, everybody in a tin can experience and still keep it fantasy.
Yeah.
You can do that with these vehicles, and it's
absolutely
it's flexible.
Super flexible.
So you were talking about the clunker junker, and I totally derailed you.
Oh, no, you pretty much covered it. Yeah, I just wanted to go over in that adventure. Gabby did a really good job of introducing vehicles to us in a way that we weren't really expecting, because we found the clunker junker, and in the context of this world she created, vehicles were really valuable, and salvaging old technology was really valuable. So we had the clunker junker, and we were constantly working on it, but then we discovered the sand scorpion, right? And that was another big thing, but it was too small for all of us to be in.
Right.
And that created a lot of, there were a lot of issues. You know what I mean?
We had to split the group between the two vehicles.
Exactly.
And that's kind of where I was going with that earlier comment. It
was a sand driver, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I loved it because she had, as a GM, to not just write a story around the players, but write a story around the vehicles that the players are in. And that's two separate stories that, again, create a Venn diagram.
Absolutely.
You get in the center of those two circles, and that's where the interesting shit goes down.
And then later, when we discovered the colony underground and stuff like that, there was a giant, like...
This fucking spaceship, wasn't there?
No, it was like...
Wasn't it like an alien craft?
I think it was like a giant sand digger, like with a giant drill.
Okay, I thought there was like some sort of like... Hellraiser style.
Yeah, it was also very alien and creepy on the inside and stuff like that. But on the outside, it was a giant drill thing.
Okay.
But on the inside, it like drove my character mad.
I remember that. Yeah. It felt super Hellraiser.
Yeah.
It was sort of like an escalation of vehicular access. And
that's a good way to put it.
That was cool because like anybody who's played Rise of the Rune Lords know that the way you get from the first chapter to the last chapter is by getting taller goblinoids.
Exactly.
You go from the goblins to the bugbear to the hill giant to the stone giant to the Titans. I forget what came after.
I don't remember very well either, but
you can do that sort of progressive complication involving the vehicles that you're using.
Especially because each of them have a level. I mean, Ambling Survivor. I love the Ambling Survivor because
What's
it looks like it's this vehicle right here.
That looks like the robot from Short Circuit.
Well, what it looks like to me is the robot we sent to Mars. One of the Mars.
Oh, the rover.
Yeah, one of the Mars rovers.
It probably was.
That's it's pretty obviously the inspiration, I think, which I thought was really cool. Then they have these crazy things like the apparatus of the octopus, and then the Clockwork Castle.
That is fucking goofy. That's been around for 4 decades.
I love it. But most importantly, I think they came out with a unique item, Von Thos's Golden Bridge. And
so this is a unique vehicle. There's only one.
Unique vehicle, only one. It's a 17th level vehicle, so it's
like
obviously
the Excalibur of Cadillacs.
Exactly. And it literally teleports you around and teleports you across dimensions and stuff like that.
Okay.
And to me, that's like...
Is it a TARDIS?
It effectively is a one-seated TARDIS with like super cool magical abilities. But what's important about it is that we've now stretched the definition of what a vehicle is to be these epic item set pieces that are bigger than players, which I love.
So like a vehicle as an artifact?
That's what it is.
Does it have an artifact tag?
It doesn't have the artifact tag, but it is effectively an artifact.
Yeah.
It's a level 17 magical vehicle.
Like
and the Clockwork Castle.
Vehicle,
you know,
be a thing?
Yeah, think of Howl's Moving Castle. We all know Howl's Moving Castle.
I'm a bad nerd in that area.
Studio Ghibli's Howl's Moving Castle.
I know exactly what it is. I've just never seen it.
Okay, well, Eric,
I got some learning to do.
Let's all boo him through the internet as you see this. He will he'll go home tonight and watch it with his beautiful wife. So in Howl's Moving Castle, the whole premise of the movie is basically there is this giant castle on legs. And inside
that's
of it,
creepy.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I thought it was a flying castle or something like that.
No, it's a castle with legs. Yeah.
That is downright Lovecraftian.
There is another Studio Ghibli.
A Spirited Away, right?
No. That's different, actually. There's another Studio Ghibli movie called
Princess Mononoke?
For fuck's sake, let me... He's just spitting out the ones he knows. I'm going to get it right one of these times. It's Princess Mononoke. Mononoke. But it's Castle in the Sky.
Okay.
And it's literally a floating castle. That's like
this. Gone with that first.
What's really cool about Castle in the Sky is it's a floating castle with a bunch of pseudo magical technology inside. Mm-hmm. It's like magical technology combined. There's like a golem that the main character befriends, and then in it, the other characters of the world fly around in other vehicles like planes and stuff like that. And what I think is interesting about that is it really lends itself to this high magic. These are the kinds of things that interest me with vehicles. They create adventures, especially in high magic campaigns that I've never experienced before. You know, like imagine a world where planes, magical planes, I guess, work. And
this is Final Fantasy territory with airships.
Exactly. And there are dungeons in the sky. Mm-hmm. Floating pyramids from Osirian.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Those kinds of things.
I forgot about those guys. Yeah.
Exactly. Those are vehicles within the context of this rule set.
Sure.
Howl's Moving Castle is a giant vehicle, a la the Clockwork Castle, literally a 16th level item. So to me, I love looking at, pop culture and applying the framework of Pathfinder to them. And now that we have this vehicle framework, it's kind of opening my mind to future ideas.
That begs a question for me because I know how to reskin everything I've seen in this book, but how do you just make a vehicle? Is there a vehicle budget anywhere in here?
I didn't see
anything like that.
Vehicle creation rules, unfortunately.
I feel like that was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Especially
somebody needs to
considering
make them and put it on Infinite.
well, they honestly it probably exists already.
Yeah, like monster creation rules, vehicle creation rules.
We have monster creation rules. And
they've
that's
got to have math for
me.
it because all of these follow certain patterns.
It could be monster creation rules. We could just apply them. They're in the GMG.
Okay.
It's a topic we're going to be covering soon anyway.
Sure.
Monster creation and hazard creation. So I don't know. I really like the recontextualization of vehicles in pop culture and how we can apply that to our games in a way that makes them more rich and kind of living. You know what I mean? Like Howl's Moving Castle or, Castle in the Sky and stuff like that.
Yep. 100%. So I've got some favorites.
Yeah, go for it.
I've got...
We're pretty much at the end of nearing the end of the show. Should probably wrap it up soon.
Cool.
Anyway.
I'll do 5 and 5 then.
Yeah,
so my 5 favorites. I love the snail coach.
The snail coach is awesome.
There is a thing in Guns and Gears where it looks like an accordion or like the thing that attaches the hose to the back of your washing machine.
Yeah.
And it has 2 compartments, and it kind of
slinkies around.
It slinkies around, right? I guess I should do it this way.
Yeah.
And then when you reach the wall, it kind of starts to secrete a substance. And it slinkies up the wall like a caterpillar.
And it has rules for you to make like a reflex save when you touch the substance and you're like slowed for...
Totally, yeah. If somebody's chasing you and whatever.
Yeah.
So it's uncommon, is huge. It costs 1,000 gold pieces. You get it around 7th level. And it's shaped like its animal namesake. A snail coach is a trolley powered by a combination of magic and alchemical adhesives with a hard outer shell to protect itself from attacks. The adhesive trail both allows it to climb and it leaves a hindrance for pursuing foes. It only goes like 15 feet of a regular and climbing speed. Super slow. It has a 76 collision damage. That just cracks me up. I'm not even sure what to make of that.
Yep.
And you can sort of see it in your head. The artwork is just brilliant on that. So I love that. When you were talking about the like a giant cavern or something like that, a giant city, I picture that one specifically.
Going around the city and stuff like that.
And just like disguise it up so it looks like a big bug or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
And then slip it on in.
I really like the Speedster.
The Speedster. Talk about the Speedster. So I'm seeing Anakin Skywalker from Star Wars.
What?
A fantasy version of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the Speedster is it's a mechanical horse. This one's for you, Gabby. It's literally a mechanical horse that goes super fast.
Yeah.
But it's a 10th level item, which is kind of insane when you think about it. Like the power of a 10th level weapon or a 10th level other magical item. This mechanical horse is as powerful as those things. It has a speed boost ability that lets it go 80 feet per action.
80 feet per action?
80 feet per action. Yeah.
You have to write very specific stories.
The Speedster's speed becomes 80 feet, and all move actions the pilot takes to gain the reckless trait. When the pilot takes an action that already would have the reckless trait, the pilot uses a degree of success one worse than the one they rolled in the piloting check. The Speedster can't use speed boost again for 1 hour. Speed boost! I don't know. I
feel like you should just fire your monk and hire a horse.
Yeah. I mean, monks are pretty darn fast. I have this idea for an episode that I want to do in the distant future, maybe when I get a little faster at running, where we go over all of the speeds, all of the maximum speeds of player characters in the game and see how realistic they are in real life.
Oh, God, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah. I have a feeling. I have a very suspicious feeling that the regular speed for heroes is unrealistic, but we'll see. Who knows?
This is not a physics simulation. So my next favorite is the Clockwork Hopper, page 95 in G&G.
Yeah.
So the Clockwork Hopper, I really, really adore. I'm going to tell you why I adore it, and then I'm going to describe what it is. I think that having vehicles that have specific effects in specific terrains are what make them sing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to see a mechanical horse in a desert setting and a swamp setting and a mountain setting and an every setting. I want something that I'm only going to see in the mountains, and it doesn't really function anywhere else. So this Clockwork Hopper, it's vehicle 6, uncommon large, costs about 750 gold pieces. A Clockwork Hopper is similar in form to a large rabbit, making hop-like strides that avoid terrain impediments. Though the lurching hops can be bumpy and cause motion sickness in some riders.
I was going to say, when I read the idea for this, I was like, dude, I would throw up immediately.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I'm picturing, instead of a rabbit, like a mountain goat shaped hopper.
I love
and
that.
then
I
like
love
a
that.
Swiss Alps kind of a setting. It crews with one pilot. You can bring 2 passengers. The piloting check, as you were saying earlier, it's one of 2 things typically. You have the specific lore for this. In this case, it's driving lore, or you have crafting.
Mm-hmm.
And, one makes it easier to do than the other. It's blah, blah, blah. What was the other thing I liked about it? The collision damage is 4d10, DC 22 to take half damage.
Just like stomping on people.
Right. Imagine this bouncing fucking mechanical ram.
Yeah.
And it goes squish on somebody. And of course, you get bumped up on the inside too.
Have you ever used what do they call the pogo sticks before?
Oh, a long time ago, yeah.
When you were younger?
Yeah.
I was like weirdly scared of using pogo sticks when I was a kid.
I think I was 7 when I did that.
Oh,
that was
wow.
a long time ago.
Yeah. You got to be made of rubber.
That was back when I learned how to like spit backwards so it would arc over. That was the same day I learned how to ride a pogo stick. I learned a lot in Fresno, California.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, you're from Florida. Fuck you.
That's fair.
So there's a 3-action massive jump you can do with this Clockwork Hopper.
Massive.
It has the
jump.
move and reckless thing attached to it. Pilot engages with a spring-driven mechanism that rockets the Clockwork Hopper into the air and do a grand leap, much like the Hulk. I added that. That's not actually in there. The vehicle jumps in a straight line in the direction of its current heading without touching the ground, landing on a space of solid ground up to 70 feet forward, 30 feet up. Creatures adjacent to the space take 4d10 bludgeoning damage.
That's crazy.
That's cool. So, like, what a way to make an entrance, right?
With your superhero landing, yeah,
that
exactly.
you can't do with your player character, or whatever has the minion trait that's attached to you.
Absolutely.
You're up.
Oh, geez.
I've got one more of the favorites, and then I'm ready to move on to examples.
Just finish this off.
One of my favorite vehicle scenes in literature ever is The Little Mermaid.
Okay.
Do you remember the rowboat in the lagoon?
No, I haven't seen that movie since I was a kid.
Sitting there across the way. It's the one where the crab, I forget his name. What the hell's his name?
Under the sea.
That guy, right.
Darling, it's better down where it's wetter.
He's trying to get the prince to kiss the girl because that's part of the Disney magic. And they go off on this rowboat. Okay. And they have a series of social encounters. That rowboat scene in The Little Mermaid is textbook chase scene subsystem.
Interesting.
Using a vehicle.
Okay.
So there were things that the boat was doing that was causing certain effects, blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, the idea of a rowboat, that's Game Mastery Guide 179.
Oh, geez.
Pop that up. Oh, I wanted a mundane example because, of course, all the magical crap is going to catch our eye first.
Yeah.
But there's sleighs, light chariots, there's rowboats, there's hang gliders, the low-hanging fruit of the vehicle world. And I think those deserve a little bit of time in the sun. So the rowboat 179, it costs 15 gold pieces. That's like the price of 3 bastard swords, I think. So it's not unattainable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a part of your. It's a vehicle 0, so you could start with this at level 1, whatever player character you're
you have
doing.
15 GP to start off with. But
one pilot, you can bring 2 passengers along.
Mm-hmm.
You get, let's see, it's 10 feet long, 5 wide. I forget what the bulk is on this one.
It's portage. The rowboat can be carried over land by 2 medium creatures or 1 large creature. Those creatures are encumbered when doing so. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, and 2d4 damage with collision. So it's not drop dead sexy, but it's something that you can use as a first level character.
Absolutely.
Without having to wait until you're level 7 or 10 to get something cool.
Mm-hmm. Imagine starting off as pirates with a rowboat.
Totally. Yeah.
Gotta start somewhere.
Everybody's got horses in D&D. Why don't we all have dinghies?
I mean,
just ride around with our little dinghies.
Not enough aquatic campaigns.
Alchemical buoys we can throw out in the water.
Well, you have that magical the canoe, right? The feather token canoe, where it's like a magical item. It's like a little magical token, and then you throw it into the water, and it becomes a canoe.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
That's like a classic.
I'm sure I've heard about it before. It's just
that's like a classic thing.
So where do we find vehicles in comics and manga and movies and books, whatever? I've got a laundry list. I'm going to blow through it real quick.
Sweet.
And again, everything I'm about to say, You can reskin anything in these books to make it work.
100%.
So you don't have to like build a vehicle from scratch. Take the chassis here and then put your own words over it.
Mm-hmm.
There are airships in Final Fantasy. There are submersibles in Jules Verne's books, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea being one of them.
And also Final Fantasy.
And also Final Fantasy, right? All of these are going to be in Final Fantasy.
I know.
There are gliders in Ewok's Adventure in the Battle for Endor and Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And they make excellent use of it.
And we all know that Star Wars is science fantasy.
It's science fantasy space opera, 100%. Nothing sci-fi about it. There are chariot races in Assassin's Creed Origins and I think Odyssey as well.
Mm-hmm.
You had the giant spider mech in Will Smith's Wild Wild West.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing that up. Oh my God.
That's
I was going to do that.
Vehicle.
That's like a level 15 vehicle, but fuck that thing.
I know,
is cool.
Isn't that great?
I love that movie.
Great soundtrack too. You have the rowboat Little Mermaid. You have the carriage scene in every Western ever. Did you ever see Willow?
No.
Okay. In Willow, there's this iconic getaway scene. It's like the getaway car driver thing, only they were on a shield going down a snowy mountain.
Oh.
And they were kind of like doing this. And it was basically a car chase, essentially.
Another iconic magical carriage is in Snow White. Nope, not
I can
Snow
see the
White.
one in Cinderella. But
Cinderella is what I was thinking
Okay.
of. Yeah, with the glass slipper.
Sure.
Yeah.
Clearly magic, right?
Yeah.
And that's very. Is she a druid? The fairy?
Oh my God.
She's
might
fae
be.
of some sort.
Fae of some sort, yeah.
But instead of in the spirit of reskinning things, so the sleigh here,
Mm-hmm.
you can make like a shield. You jump on a shield and go down a mountain.
Yeah.
You just use these rules and these actions, and everything's already here for you.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Firefly vehicle in here, which was the magical magnet electrical.
I loved that
one.
thing. That thing was
You've got
dope.
that in the Matrix. You've got that in the kind of got that in Dune.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the Speedster in here, which is straight out of Speed Racer and the Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what I thought you were talking about with the horse thing
I don't know.
you were doing. The Clockwork Borer, straight out of the Matrix, straight out of Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
So vehicles are everywhere in nerddom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard to find them in tabletop fantasy games that aren't specifically targeting that, like Lancer, like Robotech,
Mm-hmm.
like Battletech. You know, if you're just doing Dungeons and Dragons, if you're just doing
Pathfinder.
Vampire the Masquerade, Pathfinder, those games tend to be about how do we put numbers around people, not so much how do we put numbers around vehicles.
Absolutely.
So I really appreciate that they took the time not only to do this in the Game Mastery Guide, but they spilled over into Guns and Gears. They tucked themselves into one of these skinny little guys in the Grand Bazaar.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of tells me that they're going to be pushing it forward into adventures and into future books.
Yeah, what I like about the design space they're building is that every book has something for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's always been this like issue in book creation, especially for TTRPGs, where you make a book for players and it's like 5 times more successful than for GMs.
Yeah.
So they're kind of blending all of those things, players and GMs, together in one book. So everyone has a book to buy, basically, or everyone can buy the same book and have something for them. And I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I think vehicles are a lot better than I gave them credit for before today.
The rules are way better. I think my final notes on it are, I just want to really hammer on the idea that vehicles generally make a setting that requires them really come to life.
Mm-hmm.
Anything outside of the generic fantasy setting generally has a vehicle or two that makes it really come alive.
Mm-hmm.
And even within a generic fantasy setting, I'd say that vehicles, because vehicles are kind of like a step in for mounts. If you think about it,
Sure.
Mounts and vehicles often solve the same problem in a lot of ways, but the use of one or the other is very representative of the technological state of the world, that you're existing in, because either animal power is still the dominant force in the world, or machine power is the dominant force in the world. But when you add in things like magical creatures,
Mm-hmm.
or you add in things like magical items, magical technology, that line and distinction becomes really fun and blurred and murky.
You know, I like that because I'm picturing like how can you take a creature and treat it as though it were a vehicle?
Exactly.
It's not a mount; it's a vehicle using the rules. So
for a vehicle.
I'm thinking like a brontosaurus
Mm-hmm.
that's died and it's been resurrected with necromancy,
Mm.
and somebody pilots it using their arcane checks,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's got 6 passengers, and we climb inside the beast, and we're hanging out on the ribcage.
Okay, one of my favorite things of all time was in an old Pathfinder First Edition game I played in, where one of us was a necromancer in First Edition, which was broken, especially when you got into higher levels. I think it might have been me. This is so long ago now, and we reanimated. I think it was me, because what happened was we killed like a dragon or something like that, and I got rid of all of my animated skeletons and stuff like that, and used all of that power to reanimate this dragon. And I was like, yeah, we got a fucking skeleton or zombie dragon now. So we kept it zombie so it could still fly and stuff like that. And what we did is we crafted a box that had little handles. So the dragon, we would all get in the box and the dragon would grab all the handles and fly away. And just we would have like this flying ship that was a reanimated dragon.
Yeah.
And in the context of this, you could make that into a vehicle.
You can totally do that.
Overnight.
And for my money, that's much more interesting than having a dragon as a mount.
Absolutely.
Or an animal companion or a familiar. I don't know why you would have one as a familiar. But the vehicle rules just seem like they're more dynamic within the context of the 3-action economy on the battle grid.
Yeah.
Than all the other crap you get as a druid with many familiars and whatever. So that's just a personal thing for me. But it's also a thing that the team can use.
Yeah.
So it's almost like having a team familiar.
Yeah, and what I really liked was the given the context, like if we put this in a fantasy realm, you know, like you said, the ram jumping around the mountains or something like that. I can imagine we could create an airboat version for swamps.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. What are those little critters that like they're like mosquitoes, but they run across the surface of the water?
Water skimmers.
Yeah, a water skimmer. So imagine like a fantasy setting where it's islands and people are on islands. You expect a bunch of ships, right? Well, what if it's these things?
Mechanical water skimmers.
Yeah.
Instead of like a sailboat.
Totally. Or like an actual giant water skimmer that got reanimated or whatever.
You know, actually, the more I think about this, you could take the vehicle rules and you just apply them to animals.
That's what I'm trying to express. Yeah.
Yeah. But you could just have the animal be a vehicle and go under, like, exist under these same rules.
Yeah. I mean, having to take control, stop, run over with, board your animal, and drive your animal forward using the appropriate skills that
Nature,
are appropriate
probably.
to it.
Or survival, maybe.
Yeah. Or, you know, whatever. Depends on the critter.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems more interesting than what we have right now.
Yeah. Yeah. The ride rules are a lot less defined, I think, than these. But then again, I'm not super familiar with them just because we haven't had a reason to use them.
We should probably get into that at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for now, I'm super positive on vehicles.
Yeah.
Over mounts.
That's the consensus.
Yeah.
Team vehicle.
Team vehicles.
All right. Well, I think that probably wraps it up for today's episode.
Yep.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us, Goblins. We really appreciate it. I just want to say again, if you can, like this video, share it with your friends if you're listening to the podcast version. That'd be rad. We've got a Patreon. Come check us out on our Patreon. We special episodes every month. And we've got a special niche in the Discord for you to talk to us directly, ask us questions. You get updates about everything we do. Yep. Basically, I
manipulate our future content.
Yes, I chime in to the currently working on projects at least once a week, talking about what I'm working on, what we're shooting, stuff like that. So it's really fun to peel back the curtain, and I'd love to have you hang out with us. Yep. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, Goblins, and as always,
keep it weird.
Keep it weird.